4.1, it's about percents and fractions. Could I have a volunteer read the learning target where it says LT for learning targets? Natalie? Thank you. So that's all we're going to do today. Key idea. A percent is the value of a part to whole ratio where the whole is 100. So it's an amount out of 100. You can finish it. If it's breaking, let me stick it in. Okay, so a percent is an amount out of 100. So when we say like 2%, that means 2 out of 100. 5%, 5 out of 100. 10%, 10 out of 100. So that means that you can write a percent as a fraction that has a denominator of 100 because it's out of 100. The symbol, this like circle slash circle, is used to denote a percent. So when we see something that's like a number 60, and then it has that symbol, we read that as 60%. I'm sure you guys are probably kind of familiar with that already. And this just means 60 out of 100, meaning we could write it as the fraction 60 over 100. We could also go the other way around. If we have a fraction with a denominator of 100, 60 over 100, I know that that means 60% because that is the amount out of 100. So we're just going to be working on going between the two forms today. Starting with 35%. If it says percent, that means it's out of 100. So I can rewrite this as 35 over 100. Ta-da, it's a fraction. But what do we almost always want to do with fractions if possible, Logan? Yes, and this one can be simplified. What fits into both of the 35 and the 100? What could I divide them by to simplify this? What fits into 35 and 100? Mia? Yeah, because one ends in 5, one ends in 0. That means 5 fits into both. Divided by 5, divided by 5. 100 divided by 5 is 20. Who can tell us what 35 divided by 5 would be? Aaron? What did you say? And there we go. That means the percent, 35%, can be rewritten as the fraction 7/20. And that is what it looks like in simplest form. Questions about example 1A before we move on? Okay, this one, 100%. What do you think I'm going to write this as a fraction to begin with? What do you think my first fraction I would write down without simplifying or anything? If it says 100%, what does that mean? Emma? It is going to mean 1 at the end of it. Can anybody think of what fraction we maybe could start with that would kind of help us see that it's 1 if we didn't already know? Aubrey? Which, like Emma said, does just equal 1, because if I have all the pieces, 100 out of 100, that's 1 whole. If you know that it's 1, you're welcome to jump straight there, but in case you're like, I don't see that, start with putting it over 100, 100 over 100, and then simplifying, seeing that it's 1. Next one, 174%. What am I going to start with? What fraction do you think I would start with for this one? It says 174%. What does this mean to begin with? Dash?
174 over 100.
Yep, because a percent is simply out of 100. Okay, I need to simplify. What is one thing that I need to do to simplify this? One thing that I would have to do. Reese?
Make it like not an improper fraction.
Correct.
Like the 1 then 74 over 100.
Yes, and I personally, that is what I would do first, because when we're working with larger numbers, I think it's easier to make it a mixed number first before worrying about like dividing out a common factor. So that's one thing we need to do to simplify this one. There is another thing. What fits evenly into both 74 and 100? Because we still do need to divide out a common factor if we can, and there is one. Ratisha? What'd you say? 2. They're both even numbers, so I should divide both by 2. 74 divided by 2 is 37. 100 divided by 2 is 50. Therefore, my simplified answer is 1 and 37/50. So the key idea so far is that a percent is an amount out of 100, meaning if you want to write it as a fraction, you just put it over 100 and simplify. Questions about example 1A, B, or C? Now in the second half, we're going to do the opposite thing. We are going to be given a fraction, and we are going to instead try and write it as a percent. So because a percent is out of 100, to turn a fraction into a percent, I want to turn it into a fraction where the denominator is 100. So I'm going to either multiply or divide my denominator by something to make it turn into 100. Whatever I do to the denominator, I must do to the numerator. Once I know what it is out of 100, so for example, this one, they multiplied 4 by 25 to make it 100. They did the same to the numerator. Once it looks like this, a number over 100, I know that the numerator represents the percent because it represents how much out of 100. So in this case, 25 out of 100, 25%. So this first one, 3 over 50. Remember, the goal is to make it out of 100. So what do I do to my 50 to make it 100? Let's start with that. How would I even make the 50 into 100? Natalie? So I would do the same to my numerator. 3 times 2 is 6. 50 times 2 is 100. This is not my answer. That is still a fraction. But now that it looks like that, 6 over 100, what percent is 6 over 100 representing? What could I now write as my final answer? What percent is it representing? Tanisha? 6%, because it's just the amount out of 100. And now that I know it's 6 out of 100, I know that means 6%. Questions about 2A. Sorry, not B, 2A. Okay, next one. This one is 9 over 1,000. This pen is dying. Okay, I need to turn the denominator into 100. What do I do to 1,000 to turn it into 100? This one might be a little trickier to think of. Grayson? Correct. So it's not always multiplying. Sometimes it's dividing. So 9 divided by 10. Does anybody know what 9 divided by 10 is going to be without setting it up? This is something we kind of talked about 2 weeks ago on our skill builder, a 5th grade concept that a lot of us forgot. Logan?
You just would move the decimal over 1.
Turning it into what number? 0.9, or if you want to put the 0 in front, you can, 0.9. Remember, every time you divide a number by 10, its decimal moves one place to the left. So in a whole number like 9, the decimal, even though we can't see it, would be on the right-hand side. So if I divide it by 10, I simply move it one space over, and it ends up on the left, 0.9. If I was dividing it by 100, that would be 2 tens, right? 10 to the second power, so I would move it 2 times over. I'm going to say it one more time because I'm seeing some people go, what the heck, Miss Reed? This is from 5th grade. So I'm reminding you that in 5th grade, we learned that if you divide a number by 10, that means its decimal moves one place to the left, making the number smaller. The number 9, this number, could look like that if I want. So if I divide it by 10, it means this decimal just gets scooched one place to the left right there. So 0.9 or 0.9. Okay, so what's my final answer for this one then? Because this isn't a percent. This is just fractions still. What percent am I going to write now as my final answer? What percent does this equal? Hayden? 0.9%. A percent's got to have that symbol. Big Ideas likely will have it there for you already, but just so you know, like on a test or something, you need to put a percent symbol if you're trying to show me a percent. You have a question, Reese? Oh, we're not quite there yet, but I love the enthusiasm. Okay, we have one more. This one says 1.5. This one is a mixed number. So, what do you think I might do differently on this one? Mia?
You turn it into a whole number or an improper fraction.
An improper fraction. Okay, that way we have an amount, like just a numerator over a denominator. The other option is to know that a 1 means 100%, and then to figure out what percent the 1/2 is and add them together. But if you're like, oh, that's a lot to remember, just make it an improper fraction first. So just turn it into 3/2 first, then make your denominator into 100. What do I do to the number 2 to make it 100? Shelby? And then I do the same to the top. 3 times 50 is 150. 2 times 50 is 100. This is still a fraction. What is the percent then that would be my answer? What would I actually write as the percent that this equals? What do I want to write? Farhan? I wouldn't want to write 150 100ths as my final answer because that would still be a fraction. I want to know what percent that equals. What percent 150 over 100 is representing? Aubrey? Yes. So we just want to make sure that if the question asks for a percent, that our final answer is a number with a percent symbol. We need it to become 150 100ths to know what that is, but we want to make sure that our final answer is written this way. Questions about the last one? Okay.